I'm over the moon. It's a 24-hour process, but it is worth it. This is like food perfection for me. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to make an incredible country loaf in the Ooni Karu 2 Pro. Now, sourdough for me is all about the process. I'm going to share my process with you in a simple to follow guide. So we're going to begin with the autolyse process, which is super simple. It's adding the flour and water. I've got a mix of strong white and organic dark rye. So we're going to add our water, and all the autolyse process is allowing the flour to absorb the water. I want this to be as simple and as straightforward to follow as possible. So we've got the water in here, and all I'm going to do is mix it. So we'll give it a good mix. This process is just all about building strength in the dough. And at any stage of the process, that's all I'm thinking about, how I can get more strength in the dough, because that will basically make a better sourdough loaf at the end. So I'll give it a mix, and all I'm looking for here is I just want all the flour to be hydrated. So I'll scrape it around the edge of the bowl so there's no dry bits. And then once I think it's pretty much done, I'll take this off the spatula, and I'll just give it a good mix with my hands. And that is literally it. It's a super quick process, the autolyse process, and look at that. It's just a mess, like a ball of just glump, really. But this will turn it into a really lovely, smooth sourdough ball. We want to cover this and leave it for a minimum of an hour. Just let it do its work. I like to leave it for 3 to 4 hours, but for today, we're going to keep it super quick, super simple, and come and check it after an hour. Okay, so our flour and water has just been sat here for an hour now, so I'm just going to check it. And before I add my levain, I'm going to do a test called the window pane test. And all that is I'm just going to pinch some of the dough between my fingers and pull it apart. And what that's going to do is just make a really thin, almost film. And if it can pass light through it, just like that, I know that the autolyse process has done its job, and now we're good to add our levain. So this has been fed. Well, I fed it at 5 a.m. this morning, so it's about 5-6 hours ago, and you can see it's reached its peak. It's over doubled in size, and I've fed it equal parts flour and water. So all I'm going to do is add this to the bowl and then just give it a good mix. So there's a lot to cover with starters, enough for a whole other video. Don't worry if you've never made one before, it's easy to do, and Ooni have a great guide on their website. As soon as it's in, and it's kind of tearing away from the bowl, I'm going to lift it up. I'm going to put it on my worktop, and I'm just going to start kneading. You can use a dough mixer, you can, don't have to do it by hand, but I much prefer doing it by hand just because it allows me to feel the dough and just get a really good understanding of where the dough's at. All this process is about is just putting strength into the dough. You want to build strength and then give it time to relax. Build it again, give it time to relax. If you've got a good dough scraper, just use that to keep your worktop clean, and you can kind of round the ball off as you go in. So my top tip for kneading is, when someone explained it to me, everyone does it differently, right? So everyone has their own little process, but someone said, think of your arms like a robot. So this arm, my right arm, just pushes out, and then my left kind of folds over itself. So I'll turn into Robot Grant and just keep doing that. And also, one thing I see quite a bit when people are kneading is they'll add loads of flour to their worktop because they're like, oh, I don't want it to stick on the worktop. If you add loads of flour, that flour is going to go in the dough, and that goes into your overall recipe, technically. So don't add any flour, just keep it moving, and then you'll end up with a fantastic country sourdough loaf. Cool, so this, I can feel it. It's like, it wants to be together now. So it's building that strength. Now, I've been kneading that for about 5 minutes. So I'm just gonna add the salt, and that adds an incredible flavor. And what I'll now start to feel in my hands is it wants to be together even more, which is perfect. So all I'm gonna do is knead that in another maybe 5 minutes, and then we'll ball it up and we'll put it back in our bowl. Okay, so we are now in the bulk fermentation stage of the process. And basically that is timed from when the levain touches the dough and it's first mixed in. So the bulk fermentation stage usually takes between 4 to 7 hours, depending on the temperature of your kitchen. But the most important thing is it gives our dough just time to rest and do its thing. So this has been resting now for an hour, and all I'm going to do now is complete a stretch and fold. Now throughout the bulk fermentation process, we're going to do 4 stretch and folds, and it's super easy to do. All I'm going to do is just wet my hand. And I'm going to come in here, I'm just from one side, put my hand under the dough and lift it up. And then I'm going to fold it back on itself. And then just repeat it 4 times around the edge of the dough. And all this is doing is it's developing the gluten, building strength, but it's doing it in a gentle way. And then we'll just fold it back on itself, cover it up, and leave it for another hour. Like I said, we're going to do 4 of those over the period of about 4 to 5 hours, depending on your kitchen temperature. So we're going to let that rest, and I think me and Rich are going to grab a coffee. Over the next few hours, repeat this gentle stretch and fold technique every hour. This will help develop the gluten and create a light, airy texture as the dough continues to ferment and rise. As time passes, you'll notice the dough becoming more relaxed with air bubbles appearing on the surface. This is a great sign that the fermentation is progressing nicely. Just remember to be gentle and let the dough do the work. Okay, so the bulk fermentation stage is over. We're going to take a look at our dough. Yes, that's what I want it to look like. It's increased by about 50% in size. I can see the bubbles are there, so it's super active. So all I'm going to do is just get it out onto our worktop and we'll shape our dough. We're going to use our dough scraper, and this is enough for 2 sourdough loaves. So you can measure it, you can weigh it, but I just like to do it by eye. So I'm just going to cut it in half. So really easily, we're just going to move it around and make a ball. What we're doing here is we're creating a really tight surface, and what that will encourage the dough to do is in the oven, when we're cooking it, it's going to get to rise up. Okay, so these have had like 5 minutes on the worktop just to rest and just relax a little bit, and now we're going to shape them. So I've got some flour here. I'm just going to sprinkle it over the top, not too much. And then what we're going to do is we're going to flip these over. So I'm just going to take the left side, I'm just going to pull it over itself. I'm going to take the right side and pull it over itself. And then all we're going to do is take the edge and just kind of fold it. It's a bit like crimping a pasty, but fold it over into the middle. And what that will do is it will create a really nice, even, tight, basically sides. So all we're doing here is again building that strength in the dough, but we're kind of controlling it now. So super quick, and once that's done, I'm just going to take the top, I'm going to roll it over itself. It's a balance here of being super gentle, but also not being too gentle, because you want to kind of push down to make sure it's super taut and firm. But again, you don't want all the gas to be removed from it, but that is basically done. So that one's done. I'm just going to leave that there for about a minute, just kind of the bottom to seal. Flip this one over, and again, just fold the left over the right. I'm kind of pulling it as I do it just to create a bit of tension. And then from the top, I'm just taking the left and folding it over the right and moving along from the top to the bottom. So there are your 2 country loaves ready to go in here. And these are my banetones, and all I'm going to do is I do a mix of flour and semolina. So semolina is a little bit more coarse, so I think it comes out quite nicely. Also, it adds a bit to the crust. So this is the top of the dough. So I'm going to flip it so the bottom is facing me. So flip it over and in. Same with this one. Flip it over and in. And these are going to live in the fridge for between 12 to 18 hours. It's the end of the day here, so I'm going to come back in the morning, I'm going to cook these up, and it's a great way to start your day. I like to do it at the weekend, and then you've got fresh sourdough bread. Morning, so it's the next day. The dough has been sat in the fridge overnight. It's been in there for about 15 hours, and that's just a perfect amount of time because the fermentation process has been slowed down because of the cold temperature, and that's just allowed the dough to just develop its flavor. So taking a quick look at this, it looks perfect. This is what I want it to look like. Let's get it in the oven. The Karu 2 Pro has been wood fired to about 300 degrees C. I've just added loads of lump wood charcoal, shut the baffles, and now it's floating around about 250 degrees Celsius, which is just perfect for making sourdough. So let's get it in the oven. I've got my peel here, and all I'm going to do is just sprinkle a little bit of semolina on top of the bread. I'm going to flip it out. Now this is not going to look elegant, but I'll give it a go. So flip that over, and all I want is this on the end of the peel. I've got my lame here, I'm going to score it. So I'm going to be quite quick with this, just because I don't want the dough to stick. And look at this, that is perfect. Because it's straight out of the fridge, it's cold, which means it'll be super easy to cut. And I'm going to go super quick with this. I'm just going to pull it about a 45-degree angle, about ½ inch deep, and just one score right down the middle. Okay, so straight in the oven. I'm going to put it right at the front of the oven, and then I'm going to leave that now for about 20 minutes. And it's just going to do its magic. Like I said, it's sat at 250, perfect temp for sourdough, and we'll come back and check it and see what it looks like in a bit. Okay, so it's been in here now for about 20 minutes. I just want to give it a quick turn. I can see through the door, it looks amazing. I'm just turning it so it gets an even bake on both sides. So super quick. Yeah, it just looks great. 10 more minutes and it'll be ready to eat and we can get stuck in. Yes, look at this. It's done. This looks unbelievable. A country sourdough loaf cooked in the Karu 2 Pro. I'm over the moon. I mean, it is a long process. It's a 24-hour process, but it is worth it. It's that process that can help you become a better baker, but also a better pizza maker. And I just can't wait to get stuck into this. I'm just gonna slice it, cover it in butter and sea salt. This is like food perfection for me.